Okay, so with the pistol in, we're going to add our next weapon, which is going to be a machine gun. So we want to have an automatic weapon that we can fire at will. So before we get to adding that, what we want to do is go to our pistol. We're going to select it and click this check mark in the inspector view here. What that's going to do is disable our pistol object so that when we test our machine gun, we're not going to have to worry about it, firing two guns at once or something like that. So we're going to grab our machine gun and drag it onto our main camera, just like we did for the pistol. And in a similar fashion, as you probably remember for the pistol, our machine gun is currently facing the wrong direction. So we want to rotate that -90. It's going to make it face in the Z-axis, which is exactly what we want. And then we're going to position that in a way that looks nice on our camera. So again, we're going to use the movement gizmo and move it around until we get it in a nice spot. Here we can see that it's kind of high in the air, so I'm going to drag that down quite a bit. And there we go. That looks a lot better to me. Cool. So we'll work with that here. So now what we're going to do is, again, go into our resources folder, go to scripts and created. We're going to right click, hit create, C# script, and we're going to name this one machine gun. And hit enter. And we're going to open that script up. And just like we did for the pistol, we're going to go ahead and replace mono behavior with weapon. But this time, we're going to get to use a lot of shortcuts. And that's because we did the majority of the work for making a gun fire. We already did that in our pistol script, and we want to reuse code whenever possible to save on time. So what we're going to do is go back over to our pistol script. You should have it open in your top panel if you've been working on these steps in the same day. If not, you can just go back to the editor and open your pistol script. What we actually want to do is copy all of this stuff inside the public class pistol weapon bracket. So there's two brackets outside of our class. We want to copy everything in the middle. So we're gonna click and drag our mouse over all of that. We're gonna hit Control or Command C, and then we're gonna go back to our machine gun script, highlight all of the stuff inside our machine gun class, that is everything inside these two brackets, and we're gonna hit Backspace and then Control or Command V. And now we have code in here that is directly equivalent to what's in our pistol, which is great because our machine gun is just going to be a pistol that shoots really fast. So what we need to do is add a couple of variables at the top here because it is slightly different. So at public layer mask LM, we're going to hit enter, and what we're going to do is say public float spread equals 0.05f, and this is going to make our bullets shoot slightly off center when we're firing fully automatic. That's because we don't want our machine gun to be too strong and shoot everything right on top of each other. That'd be a little bit too good. So we want to add some slight random variation to each shot fired. We're going to say float fire cooldown is equal to 0.1f. and float fire time, with a capital T, of course, at the end there. Next, we're going to drop into our fire method here. And between raycast hit and physics.raycast, we want to add a line of code. So we're going to hit the enter button, and we're going to say vector3 random dir, that is random direction. And we're going to set that equal to new vector3. So we're making a new vector3 instead of getting one from something else in our code. And we're going to say random.range with our open and close parentheses, negative spread, comma spread. So that means that this is going to return a value between negative 0.05 and positive 0.05, randomly chosen. And then outside of the parentheses for our random range, we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to highlight all this, hit Control C and Control V to copy and paste it, or you can type it again if you're more comfortable doing it that way. And then we're going to add one more comma and then one F. And then outside of that, we're going to add our parentheses. And then next what we're going to do is in our physics raycast, rather than doing our transform.forward, which would be a straight line, meaning we're perfectly accurate, what we want to actually do is camera trans.transform vector random dir. So similar to the way we did it when we set up our player controller and movement, That's going to take our random direction that we're giving here and rotate it such that it makes sense coming from our camera. That's going to prevent any weirdness because these values are going to always be between 0.05 and negative 0.05. Rotate, or using this transform vector thing is going to make it so that it's rotated and properly aligned with where our camera is facing. Cool, so once we have that, all we need to do is take, or go down into our else statement down here where it says, else fire laser, and we're going to replace the camera trans.forward with random dir. So that's going to make it so if we don't hit something, it's going to fire it in that random direction. And then what we need to do after that is go down into our process inputs method, and we're going to set it up so that we can hold the mouse button and actually keep firing. So what we want to say is instead of get mouse button down, we just want get mouse button. That means that if this button is being held down, this will be true. And we want to say, before our is reloading thing, we want to say and time.time is greater than fire time and is reloading. That's because this fire time is going to be the delay between each firing, because if we don't have this code, then we're going to fire a bullet every frame, which means it's going to fire very quickly, and we don't want that. So we're going to add that there, and then underneath fire here, we're going to hit enter, and we're going to say fire time is equal to time.time plus fire cooldown. And fire cooldown is that variable we set to 0.1 up here. So now that means that after 0.1 seconds, we're allowed to fire again, which is going to add just a slight delay between shots, but it'll be enough to make the gun feel like it's firing in a realistic way. Excuse me. So now if we hit save and go back to our game view here, and we select our machine gun, we need to add our machine gun script to that. So we go ahead and drag it into the inspector or drag it right on top there. And same thing we did with the pistol, we need to set the color and all these values. So I already went over them in detail in the last step, so I'm going to quickly do this. If you need help understanding that, feel free to reference the previous video. I'm going to choose green for my machine gun, and of course set my alpha to 255. I want these to do 3 damage per bullet because we're going to be shooting a lot of them. I'm going to give this 200 ammo because we're going to burn through a lot of ammo. And I'm going to set the max clip to 30 and the current clip to 30. Ammo to add, I'm going to make that into 200. The 1 reload delay is fine. We want to make sure we set our layer mask again to default and terrain. And then we need to get that bullet hole prefab from our weapons folder, so I'll drag that. And then lastly, we need to make sure we get our clip text and ammo text from our UI to update those. And once we've got all of that stuff properly assigned in there, we can hit play. And you'll see if I hold left mouse button, we're not shooting. And you might have guessed it's because we forgot to add our audio source again. So before we can play, we need to go over and hit add component again. And I've still got audio source typed in there, but you'll type audio source. And we again want to untick play on awake. And then we're going to go to sounds, weapon, and find the one that says SMG sound and drag that in. And I actually forgot to tell you to do this in the last step, so go ahead and go back to your pistol and untick play on awake there as well, because we don't want these sounds to play when the game starts, we only want them to play when we're shooting. So make sure on both weapons you have play on awake unticked. And now if we hit the play button, you'll see that we're shooting. We're of course updating on our UI. If I hit reload or hit the R key before I run out of early. But we've got guns, we've got bullet holes, and we're doing all the fun stuff that we want. Great, so now that you've got all that set up, we're ready to move on to the last gun, which is the shotgun.